Celtic picked up that elusive Champions League win on Wednesday night with a big 2-1 result against Feyenoord, but can they follow it up with another 3 points against Hearts at Celtic Park tomorrow? This is Tino with the countdown to kick-off, joined here by James and Joe. James, come to you first, your initial thoughts ahead of tomorrow's game.
It's always one of my favourite fixtures of the year, so we're really looking forward to it. We've got that lift from Wednesday night. We've just got to use that and build a bit of momentum. We spoke about it on the post-match on Wednesday night, how important momentum is to every single football team in world football, and we've got to build that now. There was a bit of can't win 3 games in a row because Europe was interrupting that. You've now got your European win. You just need to add your domestic wins to that to burst through the 3. So tomorrow's the second of them. But yeah, Hearts always exciting. They always come and bring a game, and it should be a affair.
Yeah, it should be definitely a game to look forward to. Joe, what's your own response to the win on Wednesday? Obviously, nothing to play for in terms of qualification, but I've noted, I thought it was just a big win mentally for Celtic. It was so important to get that monkey off their back, and I suppose just for the players as well, and it's validation for Brendan Rodgers that he can motivate this squad of players, limited as it is in places, to go and get the win on the big stage.
Yeah, I did. Going into the game, I wasn't overly excited by it, given that there wasn't a lot at stake. But I mean, I think with any game you want to win everything you play in, and I don't think it really matters whether, regardless how much is at stake, you want to win at all costs. I think the nature of the one at the last in Wednesday night as well was pretty good. Just it was a last minute one, everyone loves it. But all in all, as you say, mentally, I think it was a big one for Celtic. I think given that we went in that run, having not won at home, the press was making a bit of noise about it, as they tend to do, but broke that duck. I think if that run was to extend a bit longer, it would be a wee bit more pressure going into next season if we manage to qualify. But now, yeah, we've got a few more questions for Brendan Rodgers, good questions to ask in terms of players that have stepped up and played well midweek, which should be a really good sign for Rodgers that he's got a bit of depth. So all in all, good going into the next big important run of fixtures.
Yeah. Joe, you mentioned some of the players there, and it's important for guys like Joe Hart, Callum McGregor, Liam Scales, Matt O'Reilly, guys who stepped up on the night. Lagerbielke, that was his big moment so far in a Celtic shirt. So really important for them just in terms of their confidence ahead of, a tricky enough 4 fixtures between now and the turn of the year. But how important, Joe, do you think it was for Brendan Rodgers? As you say, he's had this record pushed upon him, hasn't he, about, is it one of the worst records in the UK Champions League wise? All this stuff that the headlines or the headline writers up here are so keen to dig out. So how important do you think it is for Brendan Rodgers moving forward?
I think it's very important for Brendan Rodgers moving forward. I think recruitment will still be on his mind. We still need to strengthen, no doubt about it. It's just mentally a big one for him. I think after Sunday and having been podcasting Monday, especially with Miff, that it definitely you got a vibe that from a lot of Celtic fans, it's still people weren't 100% convinced. With this run of fixtures, I think he can really come into his own and prove exactly why he's here, winning big games, using what he says is not his desired squad size, but also not the desired squad quality. I think he can show his real values and credentials as a coach and manager over the next few games. So I think it'll be a big boost for him. Yeah,
definitely. James, so we've got Hearts tomorrow, Saturday. Then it's Livy next weekend. It's Dundee on Boxing Day and Rangers on the 30th. So before we get into the detail of tomorrow's Hearts game, what do you think the message from Brendan Rodgers to the players is? Is it a one game at a time now? Can we start to really focus without that distraction of European football?
There's about that, but there's lots of opportunity to use Wednesday night to motivate the players or further motivate the players that everyone was telling you couldn't do it and you went and did it. You got your points on the board. Monkeys off the back, hoodoo's gone. Just use that. Use that as a motivation to take into these games. And it's irrespective of what you're saying there, Joe. I totally agree with you. The squad size is too big, the squad quality is too low. But if you look at the St Johnstone and Kilmarnock games, we're up against 2 teams there that the squad we've got is vastly superior, and the first 11 is vastly superior as well. It was a lack of fight that cost us in both those games. We rescued it in St Johnstone, but it cost us dearly at Kilmarnock. So I think they showed real fight on Wednesday night. They were up against it for long periods. So they're showing they can do it, and they're showing they can take the manager's instructions. So they've just got to take them not just into tomorrow, but right along into, I think it's St Mirren we play before the break, so 2nd of January or something like that. So got to take that all the way through and just finish strong. Got to do it.
Yeah, really important. Okay, so let's look specifically at tomorrow. So it's a 3 o'clock kickoff against Hearts at Celtic Park. We'll look at the lineup. And the lineup, I suppose the frustration is, in general terms, we have lacked this consistency of lineup. I spoke in a recent show about inconsistent lineups equals inconsistent results. And that's what we've got. Celtic have had some real big moments this season and some letdowns and some in-betweens. And I think the hope is now that, at least until January, when we hopefully buy some quality reinforcements, we can find that stability throughout the team that will take us through these next few games. So, Joe, let's start with the back line. And let's start with Joe Hart, first of all. He'll start, of course, and he always does. He started, let me get this right, 23 of Celtic's 24 games this season. He'll absolutely start again tomorrow. What do you think of the contribution he made to Wednesday night?
Oh, it was a massive contribution. And, for all the stick that he gets, I mean, even the goal he scored wasn't really down to Joe Hart, where in a lot of cases it has been in the past. So I was happy for him the other night because he really stepped up and showed a glimpse of the real qualities he has as a goalkeeper. His shot stopping, his general leading of that back line, I thought was exceptional. And you know what? I seen him at full time. It looked as if he was quite emotional walking around the park at full time. I'd seen a lot of pictures, and I think he knows himself that could be his last game at that level, which I suppose is a positive, but also for him, it's a shame that it's come to that. But he really stepped up the other night, and I thought it really was a reason that we won it. So I was delighted for him.
Yeah, very much so. I was speaking to a friend who works in at Celtic Park, and he said he's seen Joe after the game behind the scenes, and he very much was emotional. As you say, Joe, it's very likely that that's his last game at this level of football, which I tweeted out actually after the game, and someone says, you don't know Peter Lowell, just easy, this might not be his last game. It should be his last game, and I say that with every respect. I think Joe Hart's been brilliant for Celtic. He's been a real key player, a real leader over the last 2.5 years there, give or take. And I think he's still got a big part to play, James, between now and the end of this season, but it was certainly one of his bigger nights for Celtic on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I think some folk have kind of tried to talk it down a wee bit. I just don't agree with that. Just give credit where it's due. All right, he's had a couple of bumpy performances and stuff, but I'm with you. I've been a huge fan of Joe Hart since he came in, and I do agree with those fans that say he's waning. He is. This time will come to us all, and particularly for goalies, that's reaction time. That's such a big thing. But he shows he can dig it out, and he'll dig it out for the rest of the season, and he'll finish strong with us because he's a real self-motivated kind of guy. He's got a lot of personal belief, and he'll use that so that he does finish his career at this kind of level and in the fashion that he deserves. And he'll go on and do something, I'm sure, because he just wants to keep playing football. But it's been a great relationship for both parties here. It's been great for Joe Hart to come and play at this level, play in Europe. And it's been great for Celtic to have such a strong voice in the dressing room where it was so sorely needed when Ange picked up the reins. So it's been great for everyone. And I've just been a big fan of him all the way through. We know where we're at. We know what time it is in terms of his career. And there's transfer work to be done. But he's going to be the goalie with the gloves till the end of the season. So he's got my full backing.
Yeah, I'm the same. So big night from him Wednesday. Well done to him, and hopefully he can take that confidence into tomorrow. James, who's ahead of him? So it's the age-old question. We've been asking it since day one of the season in terms of Celtic centre halves. There's never been a consistent pairing for different reasons, whether it's injury, availability, form, whatever. Let's say the fullbacks will be most likely Johnson and Taylor. What's that middle two looking? Scales was excellent the other night. Is it Scales plus another? And is it a return for Carter Vickers?
Mitchell Frame.
Hearts game's a big game to throw him into, isn't it? I'd like to see him given more of a chance, and it was brilliant to see him. So he's a young left back, 17 years of age, made his debut. What a game to make your debut in, Champions League stuff, but probably too soon, and you've got to be careful around a kid like that. So I'd say no Mitchell Frame tomorrow. I think it'll be Greg Taylor. So yeah, let's leave that what it is for now. But the centre backs, I've mentioned Carter Vickers, I've mentioned Scales, I've not mentioned Lagerbielke, match hero, big winner on the night. So what do you see the pairing as?
CCV's back, so CCV's fit, he plays. That's just the end of the story as far as Celtic's defence goes. We're just a camera unit when CCV's in there, so no debate for me. Scales had another, really big game for Celtic on Wednesday night, so he's going to be there. I don't think Scales is a long-term future or even medium-term future, but he's got the number, so it's the two of them, and that. I'm happy with that for tomorrow.
Yeah, Joe, just before you give your own comments, there's a comment that's come in specifically for you saying Joe needs replaced in the summer. Now, it might be the goalkeeper, it might be yourself. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean that's up to the gaffer, I suppose. At the end of the day, I really hope it's Joe Hart. But yeah, I think that in terms of defence, I think Carter Vickers will come in if he's fit. I don't really see why you would play anyone else. I know Lagerbielke scores midweek and Welsh does well, but ultimately we've got a really important run of fixtures, and the way getting Carter Vickers up to speed is by playing him. I think he definitely starts. The Mitchell Frame argument, I actually remember Mitchell Frame playing, I remember watching the Cup final. I don't know if it was the Glasgow Cup final or the Youth Cup final last year. I can't remember, but it was a mental game. And Wilster, I think they won 5-4 Celtic. But Mitchell Frame, I remember at the time being an absolute standout. And I mean, it's easy saying this now, but I've pestered my dad and my brother for a while. But genuinely, I remember at the time watching him thinking, wow, this guy looks a player. Real turn of pace on the left-hand side, hits the byline, which is sometimes what we miss from our fullbacks at times. But yeah, I think tomorrow comes a bit soon for him, but it's certainly something that we can look out for in the future.
Yeah, do you know, I can't think of many examples, just very generally this season, of Greg Taylor or Alistair Johnson getting to the byline. It's just something that's been missing from Celtic's play this season, and I don't know if that's based on Rodgers' system or the players that he's asking to play in the system. So it's an interesting one. But yeah, from Mitchell Frame's point of view, he'll be full of confidence. James, good to know that our Joe here discovered him, so that's a feather in his cap. And hopefully he stays around the first team squad at least. Be great if he's on the bench and gets more experience. And then, listen, Rodgers is a smart guy in terms of introducing young players, and I'm sure he'd know the right time when to bring him in. Joe, before we move into midfield, I'd just like your comments on Stephen Welsh. That was his first game in just about 4 months there, stepped right into it, came in from the cold. And actually, he had a couple of mistakes, had a couple of moments, but by and large, had a very decent game. And I've seen some others commenting, and I agree with it, in that his movement of the ball was very quick. It wasn't as laboured as it has been. He wasn't taking the 2, 3 and 4 touches that Celtic centre-halves can sometimes take. He was quite eager to punch it into the midfield and move the ball on and 1 and 2 touches. So just your general thoughts on Stephen Welsh just now.
Look, I think Stephen Welsh is quite. I think he's a bit of he's an up and down time when he's been at Celtic. I think he doesn't have all the attributes you would typically want from a centre half. I think he's the most physical. I don't think he's really the best in the air, which is something that Scales and Carter Vickers would superiorly, majorly have over him in terms of a starting place. But I thought last night, as you said, or in Wednesday night, sorry, I thought he was really, really composing the ball, which is something that Nat Phillips hasn't offered in the last week or so. But yeah, as you say, really positive going forward. He wasn't really playing the safe pass. He was trying to sort of make something happen from the limited position that he was in, which is ultimately all and above what I would expect from a centre-half in Celtic. So yeah, I was really pleased with him the other night. He signed a 3-year deal, so do you know what? He's going to be here for a while anyway, and it was a very recent 3-year deal he signed. So yeah, after the other night, I'm quite optimistic that he can offer something a bit more.
Yeah. And in the midfield, James, you and I will both be disappointed. Big fans of Tomoki Iwata. I think a lot of folk are. They see a lot in him. Started the game well against Feyenoord. First 10, 15, 20 minutes. Allowed Celtic to get a foothold, didn't he? And allowed Callum McGregor to make that more advanced move into the higher part of the midfield. But he gets injured in 19 minutes and he goes off. We've yet to hear anything. So what's this, kind of 1:45 on Friday? Yet to hear anything in terms of injury updates from Brendan Rodgers. So remains to be seen. It looked nasty enough, and I would say it would look at least a doubt for Celtic Park against Hearts. So who do you think that third man will be now? This has been a big issue for Celtic, chopping and changing. Hatate injured, so Turnbull comes in. Then it's Thiago home. Then it's Bernardo. Then it's Iwata. Who is it tomorrow?
I mean, my absolute hope is that it's an impact injury for Iwata, and his kind of swelling's gone down yesterday, and he's had a light day today, but he's fit enough to play tomorrow. That's my absolute preference. I suppose we're talking hypothetical if it isn't. The easy route to go down is just stick Calmack in the 6 and go Bernardo and O'Reilly. Is that dynamic enough for playing Hearts at home? I don't know. Turnbull, absolutely not, for the same reason, not dynamic enough. So do you go with Home in the 6 and O'Reilly and Calmack ahead of him? A lot of responsibility for the young boy. Probably the safest option is to go with the default, which would be Calmack, Bernardo and O'Reilly. But my preference absolutely is Iwata, Calmack and O'Reilly.
I'm 100% on board with that. If fit, Iwata for me. If not, Bernardo. I like Thiago Home. He's shown certainly in glimpses some of the qualities he's got, but he's kind of become the forgotten man in recent squads, hasn't he? Sometimes on the bench, sometimes not. But either way, he's rarely getting minutes, and it would be a real surprise, if he gets thrown in against Hearts tomorrow. Let's look further up. So Kyogo came in instead of O. O had started the last 2 games, but Kyogo starts against Feyenoord. He worked hard, Joe, as he always does. He got himself into decent spaces, had a couple of half chances, particularly on his left-hand side. But ultimately, it's another game that goes by without another goal for Kyogo. Do you think he's letting that get to him? Do you think that's affecting him? And do you think he'll get the nod tomorrow?
I think he'll get the nod tomorrow. I think it's a shame. I mean, I've listened to Brendan Rodgers come out and say that it's not a case of Kyogo being told to play somewhere differently. It's more that Kyogo's not actually listening to what he's saying, is almost went rogue in a sense. I think he's a no-brainer that he starts tomorrow. As I see, I've always said, you start your best players at all costs. I think it could be a case of he just needs a goal, and then that'll sort of do him the world of good, and he'll kick on from there. And we've got, as I say, we've got a really important run of games. I don't think it's a time to experiment. I don't think it's a time to sort of persevere with O, who's okay, scored 2 goals a week and a half ago, but really what else has he done other than that than score maybe goals when the game's been done? Kyogo's a game changer. He wins your games. He's our best player still on his day. So I think it's a case of persevering with him, hoping that he comes out of this sort of bad run of form and can kick on and do what he does best.
Yeah, I think we should be going with Kyogo, James. He's the top man, and listen, all these guys can have their spells in and out of form. It's just part of football. But on his day, he's as good as anyone around, and he's the kind of guy you'd want to be leading the line for Celtic. And hopefully we can get him more service. Part of it it's been a combination, hasn't it? Kyogo's been a bit out of sorts, but the service hasn't been there as well. And you need to have both firing at the same time to get the rewards from it. Who do we think will be either side? So my guess would be Louis Palmer to the left and Mikey Johnson to the right. And big a fan as I am of Mikey Johnson, he has had opportunities now. He's had 3 starts in a row, James. It's certainly up for debate whether he's taking those chances, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. I think the debate's done. I really wanted him to take the chance. I really did. Every time he's had the ball going forward, I've been screaming, shows what you can do kind of thing. He hasn't done it. I think we need to start saying, we've had a right good go at this. You've had your chance. I think if he's on the bench and he's able to come on and make a wee bit of an impact in the last 30, great. But you can't trust him. You actually saw one point Johnson had the ball kind of going down the right wing, and Mikey made a good run for him, and Johnson didn't pass him because he couldn't trust him. And that's damning when your own teammates are judging within the game. So for me, Mikey's now shouldn't start for Celtic, and we just need to work towards what's best for him for his career going forward. I don't think he's at Celtic Park. Dysen's back, so I'm going to put Palmer on the right and Dyson on the left.
You think he's back as soon as tomorrow?
That's what he's saying. That's what Rodgers was saying during the week.
Be surprised if he starts. From Mikey Johnson's point of view, he certainly can't be blamed if Alistair Johnson's not giving him the ball if he's in a good position. So that's whether you think.
Why is he not giving him the ball? Why wouldn't you give him the ball?
Well, if he's made good space, you would argue that Alistair Johnson's made a wrong call there.
He can't trust what Mikey Johnson's going to do with the ball. Or in fact, he knows what he's going to do with the ball.
What I would say counter to that is that Mikey Johnson should have a couple of Celtic assists on his record for recent games if O had tucked his one away. And the one that he flashed across the face a goal the other night, should somebody be on the end of that?
Two, Kyogo or Palmer. But that's you need high chance creation if you want to play that game. You need to be pinging in 6, 7, 8, 9 balls if you want to say, I've done my job. You can't just fling in 1 or 2 and say, well, you missed your sitter. The winger's got to be putting way more balls in than that. And that's it. It's kind of flash in the pan. Because see that, I know exactly the ball you're talking about. And I'm going, you can do it. We know you can do it. Why can't you do it consistently?
Yeah, I keep my own personal stats on Mikey Johnson very separate from the ones that you'll see published, and I'm putting them down as 2 assists, and he's getting them. Joe, I think it's hard to disagree with a lot of what James is saying there. I wonder though, just out of necessity, he maybe gets the nod again, because the alternative is James Forrest, Yang, who's dropped out the picture, and what would be a very quick return for Dice and Maeda. But what do you think we'll see in the wings?
I think he will start the same front three. I don't really see, as much as Maeda's back and he's available, I don't really see, given that he's been out for 6 weeks, is he going to throw him in straight away? Now, it could be a case of how bad the performance was last Sunday that Maeda might have been rushed back a bit quicker than it would have maybe expected. I would start Mikey Johnson tomorrow purely because I don't want to start Forrest and I don't want to risk Maeda getting a setback. Now, however that will transpire tomorrow, I don't know. Rodgers will know better in terms of how fit Maeda is to play the next, to play for however many minutes. So I'm agreeing with you in the Mikey Johnson point in the sense of he has shown flashes what he can do, and I think that sums up his Celtic career. He showed what he can beat a guy very occasionally, albeit, but that is sort of what he's good at. He's good with the ball at his feet. He played a great ball across the Lewis Palmer the other night. If Lewis goals that, you're going on about how great a ball it is for Mikey Johnson. It's just one of those things. Likewise, he's very close to scoring against Kilmarnock on Sunday there, where it was the ball come across from McGregor. So yeah, he has his moments in the game. It's maybe not. It could have maybe worked out a bit differently, but I still think he should be doing enough. He should be doing more. Sorry, I don't think he's doing enough as it is just now. And I really, he's now in a position where he's not really under a lot of pressure because there's not many guys that are behind him, really knocking his door due to injuries and we're off form from Forrest and Yang, arguably. So really, I mean, he's really down to his last chances now, and if he doesn't really turn up and sort of, show a bit more than what he's shown, then I would say it's a matter of time before he leaves Celtic.
Yeah, do you know what I'd say? They're all fair and valid points from both of you on Mikey Johnson. I'll do my best to get them edited out of the replay, and the Mikey propaganda will continue from here on in. James, I just want to touch on Dice Maeda himself. Obviously, we've chatted there about the potential of him returning. We've spoken recently on the weekly show about the fact that Celtic, or Brendan Rodgers specifically, has had to do without Carter Vickers, Rio Hatate, Lee Alabada and Dice Maeda, 4 guys who at any given time walk straight into Celtic's best first 11. So how much of a boost is it to potentially have Carter Vickers back around tomorrow and Maeda up at the other end of the park?
You see Gary Melrose in the comments there saying about the productivity stats that Mikey gives you, and we'll leave Mikey alone kind of thing. But I mean, for Dyson, the productivity stats he gives you, that's one of the biggest things. He just chases all day. So when you're playing a team like Hearts, when you know you're going to be in a game, I mean, we just don't know his injury situation. If he's even close to match fit, then he starts for that reason alone. I dare say, if he played against Lazio as well, it could have helped because he pins defences in, and we know that you give up a lot of guile and skill when you put on Dyson, but you get that productivity. So it's a bit of a trade. For me, if he's fit, he starts tomorrow just to keep us high on the productivity side of things and keep Hearts pinned in.
Yeah. Lee Alabada, it remains to be seen when he'll return, but his stats are even more impressive. He's not the most pleasing on the eye, not to say that he's awkward on the ball, but sometimes he lacks a wee bit of finesse, but his numbers don't lie. Absolutely, since he's arrived at Celtic Park in terms of assists and goals, his numbers have been really strong. So be a big boost when he returns, and certainly Hatate, hopefully not far behind. Before we take a look at Hearts, just want to thank a few folk who have joined the chat. Asim's here, Asim, good friend of the show, Mick Clark, Ross Foy, John Ellis, Gary, various others that have commented. If you are watching on the YouTube live, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and give us a like here. It makes a big difference to what we do. If you're listening to the podcast, likewise, if you can follow and give us a short review if you get a moment on Apple or Spotify, makes a big difference. James, let's look at Hearts. So they've all of a sudden found themselves a wee bit out of form. They've lost their last 2, having won their previous 3 before that. So what are you expecting from them at Celtic Park tomorrow?
What you would expect from Naismith anytime he turns up at Parkhead. Just absolute full pelt. I don't think there'll be a lot of considered slow play from them. They'll be physical. Referee will need to be strong. He'll send them out to try and level the game, which is about pressing us really hard and being physical in the tackle. Probably borderline, taking gambles as to how physical they can be. So if the referee keeps an eye on that, it should work out okay. It'll just be a battle for the first, 20, 30 minutes anyway, but we need to get on top in that period. If we can get an early goal in the first 15, 20, obviously it changes things. Although you'd see that against Kilmarnock as well. But, Naismith, his style of play has continued into his style of management. Some players are so different from their style of management. I don't think Naismith really is. He's just all guns blazing, teeth bared kind of manager. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting battle in that regard.
Yeah. Joe, just in terms of that form I mentioned, so they lost to Aberdeen last time out. It was a late goal. I think it was 90-odd minute for a 2-1 win at Pittodrie. Prior to that, they lose at home to Rangers 1-0. And then the 3 wins before that, there was a 1-0 win away to Kelly, a 1-0 win at home to St Johnstone, and a 2-1 win at struggling Motherwell. They're not scoring a lot of goals, generally speaking, but in Lawrence Shankland, they've always got someone that's likely to grab a goal.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, that name always has come up the last, while or so about a potential signing for us, Lawrence Shankland. So it shows you how much he does. Scores a lot of penalties, don't get me wrong, but he's still a penalty box striker, and he's a guy that you need to watch out for because he'll score goals. But yeah, Hearts they are in a bit of ropey form. I mean, away to Aberdeen, home to Rangers, two not obviously difficult games. But they've grinded results out. And as James says, they're a team that are going to be up for the fight. They're going to be in your face, sort of try and win the physical battle and see what sort of happens after that. I will put a lot of money behind this that if they have kick-off or they start with kick-off, they will be going a diagonal long ball towards Greg Taylor and trying to win that first ball, like most teams do. But Hearts, I would probably expect it more than anyone else, given that they're a more direct side. And as you say, they like the physical battle. So, no, I'm expecting a hard game. And, they won't be taking any prisoners.
There's no doubt, James, that teams have employed or deployed that tactic of just launching it on top of Greg Taylor. They've clearly identified, listen, all teams to a certain extent now have got the systems and software and analysis tools available to have a look at where Celtic or any other team that they're playing against are weak. And I think the stats will bear out that Celtic have a weakness in the left-hand side, and that's where you can get a bit of change. That's where both Kilmarnock's goals came from, down Celtic's left-back area. And I think Hearts or anybody else would be foolish not to go into that area. And then when you've got guys like Shankland in the box, if you can get it wide and across to him, it's always a threat. And also, would you take him at Celtic?
Shankland?
Yeah.
I've always been a fan because he's the kind of guy that just always gets goals. But see, if you look at his non-penalty goals the last 2 seasons, I think he scored something like 8 from open play. It's really light. And I know he's playing, maybe for Hearts, but when he was playing for lesser teams, he was scoring way more from open play. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of preparing myself so I can say when he goes to Rangers, he's no good. He's only scored 8 for open play in the last 2 years. I think it's more likely as a Rangers fan, if Rangers can afford them, that he would go there because they're screaming out for dare I say, a Kenny Miller, a Chris Boyd, a typical Scottish kind of striker that they always like to have in their lockup. I wouldn't mind him at Celtic, I have to say. I wouldn't, because I've always thought he's a good goal scorer. I just don't think he's in great form at the moment. Cue tomorrow.
Just while we're on the subject, Majowski's chat's always obviously doing the rounds in recent times. I really like Majowski, and I think Celtic 100% should be going for him. Do you have any opinion on that? Him versus Shankland or anything otherwise?
Different kind of players, very different players. They probably strengthen your squad. Probably good guys to have around. Majowski maybe first team, Shankland maybe, to bring off the bench is a really strong 30 minutes. If you need a goal, he'll be round about it kind of. Yeah, I just think they're so different. I find the whole thing galling in terms of Celtic scouting that we're now talking about guys that are just standing beside you instead of who's playing in Portugal, who's playing in Stockholm or wherever kind of thing. It's quite baffling that we've got to this with the kind of dearth of good production from the the recruitment team. But we are where we are. I do like Miovski. It's probably high money. What, 4 or 5 million, something like that? Maybe. Depends who he's up against on the scouting book. But that looks like no one, so you might as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is 4 million, but Lagerbielke's paid for half of that the other night. Let's just throw it in the mix and call it 2 million, and it's a job done. Joe, from Hearts' point of view, excuse me, to bring it back to them, I think they do have a couple of injury worries of their own. Liam Boyce, good player, good striker for them, clever player, I think. He's missing by all accounts, and Cammy Devlin, a guy who, if you are a betting man, bet responsibly, but stick him on to get a yellow card against Celtic. So as much as we've had our own injury worries to concern ourselves with, Hearts are maybe coming here a wee bit lighter than they'd hoped to as well.
Yeah, and I think, see, to be honest, I think modern football's just happened to everyone now. You'd be lucky if you looked across the board in our league and further afield, the teams that weren't having injury issues, just with the volume of games, etc. So it's the way of the world just now. With Cammy Devlin, I mean, the one thing that sticks out with Cammy Devlin is not playing a minute at the World Cup and asking for Messi's top at full time. Like, that will forever sum up the guy in a nutshell. You know, a bit of a loose cannon by all accounts, but I think still a good player in his own right. I remember him scoring. I think he scored in one of the Hearts qualifying games in Europe, two really good goals. So I think he's a good player. Plays for Australia. He must be well thought of down there. So having him missing, of course, is in some way a boost, because I think he would be a starter. Liam Boyce, I agree with Tino. I think sometimes when you get a big striker, sometimes people write off their ability, given they think they're only up front because of their presence. I think, yeah, he's actually technically a decent player. And he did struggle with injuries, but, you know, he's proven to score a lot of goals at this level. So, yeah, always a threat in his day, Liam Boyce. So I suppose that's a good thing that he's missing. But yeah, other than that, it's going to be a hard game all round against Hart. Always is. So regardless of who's fit or not, I know they'll work for the fight.
Exactly that. As James says, the manager won't allow otherwise. I'm not convinced Stephen A. Smith was the right appointment for Hearts, but that's by the by. I think they had their AGM during the week, or just in the last day or so, and I think the appointment of Stephen A. Smith was questioned by the fans, but that's a Hearts situation, not for us to concern ourselves with. But either way, they'll certainly be motivated on the day. Before I come to you for your score predictions, just to catch a couple of things in the chat. So Gary Melrose has sent various kind of interesting stats on Mikey Johnson. We don't have the chance to cover them at the moment, but we will be doing one of our Q&A episodes here as a live pretty soon. So we'll try and catch those kind of things during that. A couple of very interesting shout-outs as well. Paul Burrow says hello, hail from Castlemilk, whereas Daniel McAlpine says hail from South Africa. So two very different parts of the world there, but welcome both and everyone who's joined us here on the live. James, I'll come to you first for scoreline predictions. So we've covered Celtic, covered Hearts. What do you think we're going to see on the day?
4-1. 4-1 Celtic.
4-1.
Yeah.
What are you basing on?
Just
feeling confident?
Take the boost. Take the boost on Wednesday night. I think we'll come out fast. 2 up by half time. Lose 1, score another 2.
That's the maths. It all adds up. So 4-1 from James. Joe, what are you going for yourself?
I'm going for 4-0. I think from what I've seen, this is a Brendan Rodgers thing that I've seen years gone by, where I was actually me and my dad that used to always say this, like turn up at Parkhead, that used to be Angry Brendan, where maybe we didn't play the best in midweek, or maybe it was either we've played absolute honking midweek, or we've played a game that we've had a bit of a boost, that you can tell, so straight away you can tell sometimes if they've had a reaction or not from whatever the manager said. You can always sort of gauge that. I think Celtic could win quite comfortably tomorrow. I don't think Hearts. I think Celtic tend to play better against teams that come out and have a go fairly early on and sort of back themselves, because ultimately they'll leave gaps. We've dropped points this season from teams that sort of probably the result against Kilmarnock's probably the exception, but teams that have come out and had a go at us, that we tend to find gaps, because that's Rodgers' game. If teams are all leaving those gaps for us, it seems to be that we've tended to exploit them. You look at teams that are similar level to Hearts. I mean, we put 6 past Aberdeen. We put 4 past Hibs last week. I think we get 3 against Aberdeen at Pittodrie at the start of the season as well. We put 4 against Hearts at the start of the season. Okay, Hibs been away, been that probably exception, but out of those games so far, we tend to score big. And I definitely, and those games as well, we've always had an early goal, a fairly early goal. So I think, I think we've got a real opportunity to score a few tomorrow. I'm hopeful, but I think we've got a real opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to see this as the turning point that Brendan Rodgers has been crying out for. We've had some results that have threatened to be that turning point. 1-0 at Ibrox is obviously a big one. The turnaround at St Johnstone just the other week there. And obviously we've had that big win during the week, and there's no doubt, listen, the players will be at Lennox Town probably right now, Friday afternoon, and feeling pretty good about themselves. And I'd love that to be the catalyst for Celtic to kick on and go on a real run now. I'm not convinced just yet it will be. I think there's potentially a few hiccups still to go. But listen, no better time to hit form than tomorrow. I'm not quite as confident as you lads. So 4-1 for James, 4-0 for Joe. I think Celtic might be a couple of goals to good, 2-0 or 2-1. I'll go with 2-0. Joe Hart to continue his good form, keep that clean sheet, and we'll take the 3 points and regroup ahead of Livy next week. Joe, just your final thoughts then as we start to wrap up this episode.
Pleased from Wednesday, given there wasn't anything really to play for other than the couple of million that we probably won't see. But generally speaking, I'm pleased after Wednesday. I know we've got guys missing who are going to come back and hopefully make an impact. We're going to strengthen in January, but really important run of fixtures. This is one of the biggest out of them all, other than the obvious. But yeah, I'm feeling confident. I think with last Wednesday's a boost. Now it's just about picking up momentum, and it starts on Saturday.
Yeah, here's hoping. James, your own final comments, please.
It's just a bit flow for me, really. We need to get in a flow. We've got the opportunity now. So you've got Rangers obviously not playing in the league due to playing Aberdeen on the Sunday. So chance there to just restore that points gap, albeit there'll be an extra game in hand, but I'd rather have the points on the board. So, that just adds its own pressure, but lets us more importantly build that flow that's just not been there this season. Guys coming back from injury will help with that. January signing should help with that. So by the time the season opens back up after the break, we should be just looking to finish the season strongly from there. So yeah, get the big win tomorrow, capitalise on Wednesday's win, and get into a flow.
Yeah, that's got to be the plan. So 5 points ahead at this moment in time, a real opportunity to go 8 clear with Rangers not playing in league duty this weekend. Thanks to James and Joe for joining me as always, and thanks to everyone who's joined on the YouTube live and contributed with your comments. It's really appreciated. As I say, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel there. And if you're listening on podcasts, please follow and review us where possible. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us for this one. We'll be back with the Final Whistle show shortly after the game tomorrow, and we'll look forward to speaking to you again then.